Hello, I'm so glad you joined with us today. My name is Rick Dake and I'm Senior Pastor at Clarkston United Methodist Church. It's been exciting to be asked to come in and tell you and the Clarkston community about all the exciting things that we're doing within the life of the congregation and within this community we love to call our own. We're going to be coming to you each month for some long period of time to share with you all that's going on. But today we're just glad you're here and that we can make a connection with you. Along with me is Mary Gladstone Highland, who is our Community Outreach Director, and I'm glad to have her with us today.
Today, since this is our first taping, we are going to talk a little bit about the core values of our congregation and who they are and what they are. It's one of the things that I noticed when I first started 2 years ago and I started to research about the church was that the 5 core values were front and center. And number 1, committed to Christ, was right up there at the top. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. The committed to Christ comes out of, all the core values come out of our mission statement, vitally connecting people to people and people to God. But when we were owning that mission statement, we knew we needed to go deeper and understand how we were going to live that out. The core values inform us on that. Committed to Christ is our way of talking about the fact that we know God through the person of Jesus Christ. But having said that, there are a lot of different ways in which people think about Christ and the communities they form around Christ. We wanted to create a community that embraced the grace that Christ showed to everyone, his inclusiveness, to continue to try to reach out to a wide variety of people and bring folks together who otherwise would never have come together. We wanted to celebrate a Christ that created a community. We do know that it's important to have a personal relationship, but quite frankly, Jesus didn't call individuals, he called people into community and allowed them by the ability to share with each other their lives and to share their faith, to become a very dynamic presence in the world. So that's how we understand God and the kind of community we're trying to create at Clarkston UMC. Part of the way we make that connection with the world around us, though, is in our outreach and in our missions work. And Mary, that's clearly a lot of what you help us do.
Yeah, so our core value around mission is transformational mission, which is more than just mission work to or for individuals. It's really focused on the relationships that are created through that work with everybody. And so we have programs that we deem as getting by programs. They're, for an example, our food pantry. People need to eat, and we want to provide food for individuals in our community who are hungry. So we have a client choice food pantry where people can come in and they can shop for those items that they want. And we also have fresh produce, milk, eggs, dairy, things that you might not be able to get at other food pantries. But we also have getting ahead programs. We did this past summer. We spent 16 weeks with individuals in our community who are living in poverty, and we asked them to sit around the table with us and share what it's like to be in poverty in Clarkston. We created these great relationships and in the meantime helped to the best of our ability to support the families while they created better life future stories for themselves. So one of the families that came in first described their life in poverty as disbelieving, dreaming doubts, divided families. And in the end of the program, they were describing their future story as my future, letting go of fear and loss and doubt, letting hope and love and faith rise up, seeing through the clouds of confusion and sunshine. Yeah. One of the other things that we're doing on November 7th is we've got our Mission Possible fundraiser. It's one of the ways that we fund all of the mission work that we do at Clarkston, and it's a great event where you can come and you can bid for auction items and you can share in the fellowship. And so I encourage anybody who's around who's looking for some Christmas gifts for their family members to come and join us on November 7th. Yeah. So we've got we're committed to Christ and transformational mission, but also worship is a key component of our core values.
That may not sound surprising to think that a church would lift up the ability to worship as something important. But the reality is worship sometimes can become routine, even for church. We just sort of do it the same way all the time. We said we wanted to be in a community where worship had a very clear purpose. And that purpose was to create an environment where people have an experience of God and also have a chance to have an impact upon their life. So worship that makes a difference is what we try to do. Everything we do on organizing the worship experience is about that impact moment that sometimes comes in the worship and sometimes later. For us, the style of worship isn't nearly as important as the authentic nature of the worship and the ability that whatever we do in worship, we do it to the best of our ability. An example of that, recently we did a series called Connections, and we were talking about how we get connected to each other and to God, and how those connections are so vital and critical. And we handed out carabiners to everyone who was in worship, and they took them home with them. Later that week, I received a call from one of the young mothers of our church. She talked to me about how she had left the church that day, glad to have been there, had the carabiner, wasn't really sure she would ever really need it. But on that Wednesday, events happened within the life of her family that she couldn't foresee on that Sunday. And the call to the church, needing prayer, needing support, helped her understand that sometimes we don't know when those clip moments occur. And she said it was in that moment when she reached out and the community gathered around her to support her and care for her. It was in that moment that the experience and relationship she had with the real church and with Christ hit her for the first time in her life. Those are the kinds of differences we're looking to create and create the opportunity for God to use for the glory of God and to help people in their daily life. So that's how we worship, and that's what we celebrate about the worship every Sunday, or wherever we do it, whenever we do it. In addition, though, as we're doing the worship component, part of what we're talking about is the need to not only connect with God, but with each other, and that requires very intentional work to make sure we're being biblically hospitable to each other.
Which is another core value of ours. Biblical hospitality is more than just being nice to people. Mm-hmm. It's about doing our best to make sure that when people enter our doors, they are enfolded in the community and that they feel like they're a part of what's going on in our church. But it also is about how we are in relationship and how we are hospitable to our community as a whole, to Clarkston. So for example, just recently we had our trunk or treat event. We had 650 trunk or treaters that came around to the different cars to enjoy some of those, spectacular displays and to get some great candy. We had some relationships that were built and friendships that were supported during that time, and we had 50 volunteers that came out to help with that event. And it was just a great time that we can say to those who are living around us, we care about you, and we care about opening our space to you. Whether or not you're ever going to enter our doors, we want you to know that we care about you. And so our last core value then is making disciples.
Yeah, it is one of the 5, and making disciples also sounds like the kind of thing that's really serious and fairly rigid, and that we're trying to make people's lives conform into a particular pattern of behavior. It's far from it. Jesus made disciples by relating to them and giving them knowledge and giving them grace and giving them permission to follow their faith journey, and knowing that wherever they went, He would walk with them. So we do attempt to make disciples, which means we grow in relationship with everyone who comes through the door. And we know that everyone who comes through the door has a faith story that we can be blessed by as we try to bless others with ours. Sometimes it takes the form of a class or a Bible study, but sometimes you have to be creative with how you do that. We live in a time when people are so busy. We also live in a time when so many folks haven't been taught the very basic understandings of what it means to follow Jesus, or who is Jesus, or what is the Bible, or how do we pray. But they don't have time for the long-term classes, which we also offer for those who want them. So recently we started this concept of 101 classes. And so we recently started this class where I'm doing the Bible in one evening. In an hour and a half, we walk people through the entire Bible. Now you can imagine we can't cover everything. But by the end of the evening, we hopefully have helped them begin to realize they can access the Bible, they can enter into the Bible, they can understand some things about it they might not have known prior to just having this book in their possession. And it's an entry-level opportunity. The thing I enjoyed so much about the class was not only the large turnout, but a number of folks brought friends who had never been to our church before into that experience because they were interested what we were going to learn that night about the Bible. Maybe they're interested to see whether or not I was going to last in the hour and a half and teaching the Bible an hour. But either way, the whole point is that it helps us all grow in our faith walk and develop who we are as children of God and the ones who are trying to follow our life after Jesus Christ.
So one of the things that I was also made aware of when I first started on staff was that we were in the middle of this big event, this new building process. Yeah. And when I first started, honestly, I walked through the building and I thought, this is a perfectly beautiful building. Why do we need to build onto it? But then quickly realized how fast the rooms fill up for programming and how constrained we are because of our congregation size. So can you tell us a little more about the building campaign?
The building campaign itself reflects all of the core values. When we were planning the new construction, all those priorities determined what we were going to do, including the decision whether we stayed on site or moved to another site. We knew that we were here to connect people and people to God, beginning in the Clarkston community. So being a Clarkston church, we put our roots down, and we're going to stay where we are on Walden Road. But also then what we built was intended to try to reflect the core values of, well, like biblical hospitality, create a new entryway where people will come in and have space to be greeted, have coffee, have a richer sense of fellowship as they come in and out of worship. One of the large spaces we're building, some would call it a gym, but we call it a community center. We call it a community center because it is large space, about the size of a gym, where you can have everything from meals to basketball games to youth activities. But we're building it intentionally, not only to serve the needs of the church, but the community. So we're going to begin offering programs as soon as that space is available to us, where community members can come in and do a wide variety of activities, and let them know that there's a space for them too on our property.
So this is essentially the Clarkston 101, right? This is trying to
right.
explain Clarkston in a few minutes. But if you want to find out more about Clarkston United Methodist Church, we welcome you to check out our website at www.clarkstonumc.org. We have plenty of information there about ways that you can get involved, and we look forward to the ways that we can meet you.
We want to make ourselves available to you so we can meet you and you can meet us, because we really do believe and have experienced that our faith grows and the church really becomes what Jesus intended it to be when we just honestly share our lives with each other in trust and joy and hope. We're glad you're here with us now and look forward to being with you in the months to come as we talk more about connections.